Asked college students at one American university that very question. And shall we say the answers are kind of troubling. Watch.
Who would you be more inclined to trust, the Trump administration or the Chinese government?
Chinese government.
In this situation, probably the Chinese government.
The Trump administration is very anti-intellectual, very anti-university, calling them liberal propaganda machines. So it's not only a racist attack against Chinese people, but it's also an anti-intellectual attack.
I want to support our president. Obviously, he's the leader of our country, but I guess I side with the Chinese in that I don't think it's propaganda.
Right. This was in response to cultural exchange centers funded by the Chinese government being shut down on college campuses due to accusations of Chinese propaganda. Joining me right now is Emma Meshell from Campus Reform and Trump 2020 Campaign Advisory Board member Madison Jessiotto. Good to see you both. All right, Emma, this is your organization, and Cabot, of course, whom we know well, who went out there and talked to these college students. Gosh, it feels like there's some real anti-Americanism right now on college campuses.
Yeah. And this is especially horrifying this week because we just passed the 30th anniversary of the Tiananmen Square massacre in Beijing, where college students who were protesting for freedom and democracy were rammed with tanks and gunned down by their own government. And now we're seeing college students on our own campuses here in America choose to side with a government that not only does not protect free speech, but actually is still concealing the events of that massacre. They are still censoring to this day any mention of that event. This is so disappointing to see from students who, regardless of who's the president, should understand that they do have freedom of speech in this country. That is not the same thing in China. They should understand that.
Well, you'd think they'd understand that, an estimated, 1.5 million Muslims are in concentration camps there in China because you don't have the freedom to choose your religion, including the Muslim faith there, that you don't have any kind of freedom of speech. I mean, there are people that don't even know about Tiananmen Square because the government squashes it. You think about Madison, just Mike Pompeo tweeting about Tiananmen Square and the reality of that on the 30th anniversary. And the Chinese were not happy at all. I mean, the ambassador went kind of nuts, right? Saying, this is disrespectful, etc. I mean, this is what happened. You can't just erase history. And the idea that kids at universities where they should be educated in things like Chinese history are choosing to ignore it as well. What does that tell us?
No, you can't erase history, but that's what many professors, faculty members, and liberals across this country want to do. And so I think what's really concerning when we watch these responses that these students gave to campus reform is the fact that if they knew the real facts, I don't think they'd be giving these responses. But the reality is that they're historically inept. They're ignorant to what has happened in our history. And it's very concerning. You look back not only at the 30th anniversary of Tiananmen Square, but we also look back at the 75th anniversary of D-Day and the ignorance that many young people had in regards to World War II and Nazi concentration camps. And so we're seeing right now in China concentration camps, like you mentioned, where they're putting Muslims in these camps because of their religion, which is absolutely unacceptable, something that we need to bring more attention to. But on top of that, we have a country that censors the internet like no other. We have a country that holds show trials where people are not given the legal rights that they should be given, where they're tortured in order to comply with the government, even if they're not guilty. The human rights abuses in China are absolutely horrific, and we need to continue to spread the real truth about this issue and about the country, because this is something not being spread on many college campuses.
Yeah, what is being spread on college campuses? How would you define it, Emma?
Well, at the Leadership Institute's Campus Reform, I'm on campuses constantly talking to students, and what we hear a lot is that socialism and communism are being painted in a very positive light on campus, and a lot of the hard facts about these ideologies are being omitted. I don't believe, to Madison's point, that these students would have a 49% favorability rating towards socialism if they understood that 100 million people have suffered and died under communism in the past 100 years. Those are hard facts. They do not lie. And I think that if these students were truly being educated, they would not prescribe to these ideologies. Yet we see them time and time again falling into this trap, which so many people have died because of it throughout history.
Well, Madison, it's because there's no tolerance for any kind of intellectual diversity, right? On these college campuses, you either think like the professors, the total leftists, or you're not gonna pass the class.
Exactly. This is what you and I talked about last Friday on your show in regards to diversity, and so many faculty members, professors, and liberal students saying they support and promote diversity, but this ends when it comes to diversity of thought and opinion. It's extremely concerning because that's what's most important on these campuses. That's how we all learn. That's how we all push forward and succeed, because we learn from people who disagree with us. We have many of the same goals. We have different ideas of how to get there. And so if we continue to educate students and hopefully people become more open-minded on these campuses, I think we'll see better results. And of course, going back to that history, and we need more history lessons on campuses and all the way back to K through 12.
I'd say. Emma, Madison, good to see you guys tonight. Thank you so much. All right, next, 75 years ago today, there were 150,000 Allied soldiers that landed in Normandy, France, and their mission was to free Europe from the tyranny of Nazi oppression. Historian Doug Weed is here to remember that unbelievable day. He's here with us after this.